Bog svima i dobrodošli u Američku ambasadu. Danas je naša privilegija da govorimo sa našim gostima. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with both of you today. State Secretary Terezija Gras for the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Sara Lustig, Special Advisor to the Prime Minister for Holocaust Issues and Combating Antisemitism. So, Sara, we're here today in a studio named for Branko Lustig, your father, in honor of his exceptional journey as a Croatian American filmmaker, but also as a powerful advocate for Holocaust remembrance globally. Can you share with us, what that journey means for you, from Branko Lustig surviving the Holocaust as a boy, to you now serving as a special advisor on Holocaust issues and combating anti-Semitism in the Croatian government today?
Sure. I think it's one of those things in terms of me being the first special advisor for Holocaust issues and combating anti-Semitism to the Prime Minister of Croatia, Andrej Plenković. I think it's a great honor because I think that there are jobs that we do as work, and then there are jobs that we do with purpose and meaning, and then I think that the quality of leadership is personal, and that's one of the messages that I shared when Ellen Germain, who is Special Envoy for Holocaust Issues, and I opened the Branko Lustig studio. I remember very clearly saying a quote from U.S. President Joe Biden, which is, leadership is personal. So in terms of this role, it is personal for me, and I would like to actually share something that my father said in 2013 about his work on Schindler's List and on the U.S Shoah Foundation, which we will get into after. So he said back then, as the testimonies came in, I would spend hours and hours each day reviewing them. I was totally absorbed as I could see history coming alive before my very eyes. As a filmmaker, I am interested in how we communicate the story of the Shoah. It is clear to me that the next generation will tell their own story in their own words with whatever means they have at their disposal. Our job is not to dissuade them from using their voice and the technology at their fingertips, but rather to encourage them to do it with care, with dignity, and with humanity. So reading that today, it's like this is what he said then, but now it's like he wanted the next generation, and I don't think back then he thought it would be me in this role, in this capacity, but the message is that for each one of us to use our own medium. So for him, it was obviously film, and for me, it is public policy.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, and may we all work with that purpose in what we do. Really powerful, and we were just in the ceremonial hall of this memorial studio, where you and your family helped create a unique collection of imagery, really chronicling Branko's life. Can you tell us a little bit about the collection?
And today I will focus on two of them. The first one is from the shooting of Schindler's List, an on-set photo of my father and Liam Neeson. The backstory of that is that actually on that day, that's the first scene in the film where we are introduced to Oskar Schindler. And on that day of filming, the maitre d' actually did not come to the shoot. He was sick. So then Steven Spielberg said, Branko, put on a tuxedo. You're going to do this role. And it's a really important role, if you remember, in the film, because actually then my father is the first person to say, this is Oskar Schindler. And that whole shoot is a scene where he's trying to actually reenact his own father, my grandfather Mirko Lustig, who was a maitre d' in Osijek in a hotel, I can't remember, Hotel
Central.
Hotel Central. Okay. In the ceremonial hallway, there's also a plaque which speaks about my father's survival through 5 Nazi death camps. Why he was such a powerful filmmaker, but also why he decided to come back to Zagreb and then spend 10 years educating youth about the Holocaust, is that my father, as many survivors of the Holocaust just don't have them in them to hate anyone. Right. And this is why, because if they hated the Nazis, or if they were still, left in the past of of what happened, then they couldn't live a better life and they couldn't inspire other people. So in that short story about, that photo, it just also shows you that, about the capacity to forgive and actually how all of our fates are intertwined. And the other photo that's really important is a photo of my father and Leopold Page. Leopold Page is the survivor of the, he's one of the many Schindler survivors, the Schindler Jude, who basically is responsible for the entire story of Oskar Schindler that is now known 30 years after the making of the film.
Thank you for sharing that. Just the threads that connect your father as a filmmaker and as an artist, as a survivor and as an advocate. I mean, that was it right there. Just the layering that's become powerful to all of us because we get to learn from the stories. So looking towards the efforts here in Croatia connected to these issues, State Secretary Gras, you're working with Sara and the wider government of Croatia on joint initiatives in the fields of Holocaust awareness, remembrance, restitution. Could you tell us from your perspective, what's the balance between government efforts on the one hand and organic community efforts on the other hand to ensure we never forget, that we establish Holocaust awareness and education firmly in all of our societies?
Thank you, Drew. Yes, it's true. As we were approaching the beginning of Croatia's IHRA presidency, the government decided to establish a national coordination body, which is chaired by Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of the Interior, Božinović. And it brings together a number of ministries like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Culture and Media, the Ministry of Science and Education, Finance, as well as state assets. So we have a national body that deals with very important issues such as restitution, such as passing important legislative acts that will be contributing to fight hate speech and discrimination more substantively in the Croatian society. And in parallel, Sara and I were entrusted with the role of co-chairs of the Croatian IHRA presidency. So we are actually driving on two tracks, taking care that we work further on important issues at the national and bilateral level, while on the other side also, let's say, laying the grounds for an efficient implementation of the priorities that we have set for ourselves during the Croatian IHRA presidency, without interfering, still being aware that as together we have a responsibility to contribute to transmitting the truth about the history of the Holocaust, not only in Croatia but throughout the IHRA community and even further on. So the efforts that we are investing in this regard are already yielding concrete results, and what we see is that a lot of initiatives are being implemented by cities, communities, organizations, institutions throughout Croatia. So be it the opening of the Ana Frank Park in Pula recently, or the adoption of the IHRA working definitions by the University of Split, most recently by the University of Zagreb. And what we hope to see is also some very important initiatives in the field of sports.
Thank you for that, State Secretary Gras. And we are also here today to speak about Croatia's presidency of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance this year. What does this important leadership role mean for Croatia?
Well, first of all, it's important to say that the IHRA has 35 member countries, but not all of them have the privilege to chair the IHRA. So I would say for Croatia this is the first time, and it is of course a huge privilege and then also a great responsibility. Yes. We have set a number of important things that we want to achieve in the year, as Sara and I are heading, so to say, or leading the IHRA. First of all, we will try to achieve some concrete steps forwards when it comes to the reform of the structure of the alliance, which we are already working on, and we are hopeful to present first results already at the plenary in Dubrovnik in June. We will then, of course, have already have an overarching theme of our presidency, which is the future of remembrance. As Sara already pointed out, we have reached the moment where a lot of survivors and witnesses of the Holocaust have already left us or will leave us very soon. This means that we have a special responsibility to look into ways how we preserve the memory in the future, and how we find new voices and stakeholders who will spread the truth about the Holocaust, not only in the present, but also in the future. So this is the overarching theme of our presidency, and as already mentioned, we will try to echo the importance of the accurate remembrance of the Holocaust throughout the IHRA community, but also all segments of the European and global society. Another important thing that we are working on, and this is something that we picked up from the previous Swedish presidency, is of course to place special importance on the genocide of the Roma. We will have 2 conferences covering the genocide of the Roma and the future of remembrance in Osijek in September this year. And then last but not least, we intend to mark the 10th anniversary of the Holocaust denial and distortion definition in order to see how it has been implemented thus far and what else we can do in terms of taking it forward in the years and decades to come with new voices, stakeholders, and with the new generation that we are dealing with. And our ambition is to have a IHRA-wide statement adopted at the plenary in Zagreb in November this year.
Thank you for that. And I think just to capture the new voices and stakeholders, that's an effort for all of us to be a part of in terms of Holocaust awareness, remembrance, education. So this is a very important year, clearly, for Croatia and the larger European community as you lead this effort. I think, to close, we are so proud to host you here in the U.S. Embassy today. And the U.S. Croatia partnership is thriving. It is pivotal to both of our countries across a range of shared goals. Sara, I wanted to ask here, at the end, how does U.S. Croatia cooperation bolster your efforts supporting Holocaust awareness, remembrance, combating anti-Semitism? What are some joint successes and priorities for the future? What are you focused on in connection with that partnership to the United States?
Well, in terms of the IHRA, I think that just being here in this studio, and again, going back to what I just said about Leopold Page, none of my work would be possible without the U.S Shoah Foundation. The U.S Shoah Foundation is the outcome of the Schindler's List. The U.S Shoah Foundation today holds more than 12 running years of testimony given by survivors and witnesses of the Holocaust. There are 2 missions of the IHRA. One mission is a world that remembers the Holocaust, and the other mission is a world without genocide. So in terms of the second mission, there's something that Stephen Smith said that I wanted to actually echo today, which is the last act of genocide is always denial and silence. For the witnesses to have the final word inscribed in history and memory, it is to overcome the attempt to silence truth. And I think that goes back to what my co-chair said about our presidency. Our presidency priority is to look at what will happen, obviously, after the post-survivor Holocaust remembrance education and research. And that's why the Future of Remembrance is a very ambitious initiative that obviously it won't get done in 1 year. It won't get done by us, obviously. It won't get done by any organization. It has to be much wider than the IHRA experts. It's a quest for all of civilization. You know, we have to look ahead and ask ourselves, you know, who will be these new voices? And thanks to efforts like U.S Foundation, there are incredible efforts in technology which will hopefully help preserve these testimonies. And the power of testimony, as I always say, you know, the survivors were our primary facts. Their collective truth will always, you know,
Speak to us.
well, it will not only speak to us, but you know, their collective truth will silence those who will one day, you know, try to say that the Holocaust did not happen. So they are so their testimony will serve as a documentation against denial and distortion. And so the whole point for the Holocaust victims was to find a way to tell to the world. And when we say you know, tell to the world, this actually goes back to my father's Oscar acceptance speech, which is a quote where he said that, you know, that the victims in Auschwitz would always, you know, they would say, "Tell to the world how we died. Remember us." So tell to the world means, you know, the victims and the survivors through letters, you know, secret archives, conversations with fellow inmates of the camp, many of which are recalled in the testimonies. So the archive, which contains over 55,000 testimonies, the archive fulfills the wishes of those who did not survive as well as those who did, which is why it's so important. And then in terms of my bilateral work with, so I'm lucky because I get to have two amazing counterparts. One of them, obviously, is Ellen Germain. Ellen is the one who opened the Branko Lustig studio with me in April 2022. One thing that I'm very proud of that we did together, we did the joint statement from Special Envoys for Holocaust Issues condemning Russian actions in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. That was done on the 29th of September, which was the anniversary of Babyn Yar, the unprovoked war against Ukraine, obviously using words such as denazification as an insult to all those who suffered under the Nazi regime in Ukraine and elsewhere, and such distortion erodes understanding of the Holocaust, disrespects its legacy, undermines contemporary global efforts to prevent mass atrocity and genocide, which I just spoke about, so that another Holocaust can never again occur. And this statement was signed by 9 of our fellow envoys, so that shows just, you know, and this was an action led by Ellen Germain. So that's something that I'm very proud of. And also in this statement, we were also looking ahead how we as envoys could help counter Holocaust distortion and then strengthen accurate Holocaust education, remembrance, and research, which actually is the main mandate of the IHRA, and understanding the history that led to to the Holocaust can help us identify and we hope prevent such abominations in the future. And then that connects to the work that I'm also doing with another hero, and that obviously is Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, who is the Special Envoy on countering and monitoring anti-Semitism. And Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, it's almost impossible to talk about the 10th anniversary of the definition of Holocaust denial and distortion without mentioning Deborah, even though she's not focused in the IHRA. In the IHRA, we work with Ellen. But on terms of denial, Deborah Lipstadt, for many, many people, is the first time that they probably even heard of Holocaust denial through her own efforts as a teacher and as someone who actually proved that the Holocaust happened in court. On the EU front, we have Katarina von Schnurbein, who is a great ally. She'll be visiting Croatia in late April. And on that point, she will help us within the structure that Terezija spoke about, which is where we will draft and finish our national action plan for combating anti-Semitism by the end of this year. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the work that the U.S. and the EU have been doing, which is very laudable and it's happening, I think right now is the most that it's been happening. And it's actually a pivotal moment because 2 years ago within the European Union, the Council made a decision that all of the EU members have to have a combating anti-Semitism strategy by the end of 2022, while the U.S. is doing it right now. So this is one of those times where it's a flip, because usually the EU follows something that the U.S. is doing, and this time the U.S. is following something that the EU is doing. And then there, I would like to just say what Deborah Lipstadt said on Monday, which is she said that hatred toward Jews, anti-Semitism, which in its most extreme form borders on Holocaust denial, it's the canary in the coal mine. It's an early warning sign in any democratic society. And I think that is really beautifully said. So I, again, just wanted to commend both of my U.S. counterparts, because they're truly inspiring and amazing leaders.
Thank you for sharing that. I think the deep relevance of this work right now in Europe, in our world, is clear from everything that you've outlined. And another phrase to remember, the future of remembrance, is a great way to characterize what we're all participating in, what that looks like, those stakeholders and communicators. State Secretary Gras, koja je vaša poruka što se tiče partnerstva između Sjedinjenih Američkih Država i Hrvatske danas?
Mislim da smo upravo proteklih godina to partnerstvo dodatno ojačali. O tome najbolje svjedoče zajednički rezultati koje smo ostvarili. Za mene je bila velika čast raditi na jačanju tog povjerenja i partnerstva kroz pripremu Hrvatske za njezino uključivanje u program izuzeća od viza. U tom procesu smo ojačali ne samo suradnju između ministarstava, nego i između Ministarstva unutarnjih poslova i brojnih agencija Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. Ono što je uslijedilo kao, rekla bih, izniman rezultat koji smo zajednički ostvarili u tom prvom cilju je bio poziv da se Hrvatska pridruži i Global Entry programu. To se dogodilo upravo prošli tjedan. Na to smo iznimno ponosni jer je Hrvatska time ušla u jedan vrlo ekskluzivan klub od svega 15 država na cijelome svijetu kojima je ukazano povjerenje da državljani koji steknu status takozvanog putnika od povjerenja mogu bez značajnijih kontrola putovati u SAD. Mislim da je to posebno važno i imajući u vidu nedavno zaključivanje sporazuma o izbjegavanju dvostrukog oporezivanja, što je, rekla bih, dodatan poticaj za ne samo razmjenu naših građana, nego i za još bolju poslovnu suradnju naših dviju zemalja. I moram reći da se veselimo skorašnjem posjetu Sjedinjenim Državama koji će biti prilika da dodatno raspravimo mogućnosti daljnje suradnje ne samo u sigurnosnim nego i brojnim drugim pitanjima koja su isto tako povezana sa ulogom koju Hrvatska ove godine ima, to je predsjedanje IHRA-om, a onda i rješavanje jednog dijela pitanja u odnosima naših dviju zemalja koja su povezana s time.
Hvala lijepa za tu priču. It's really cool, I think, how you capture for us working on the U.S Croatia Partnership. There's this high-level government, achievement that also leads to stronger ties between our peoples, and that's clear in these initiatives that we work on, certainly in the fields of Holocaust awareness and education and remembrance, but across so many areas. Dakle, od srca hvala što ste došli danas u Američku ambasadu. Hvala svima.